Hello, everybody, and welcome to our very first episode of The Airing Room. So it is a podcast powered by Damp Smart. And what we're looking to achieve from The Airing Room is for you, the viewers, to be able to be a fly on a wall of the conversation and really kind of get to listen and ask questions following it. And then hopefully we'll be able to respond to you. But we want to be part of the solution when it comes to the housing crisis across the UK. No more debates. We want to have raw conversations and some real honest answers. So I'm delighted. Our first subject matter expert is Eileen McCallum. So Eileen, thank you so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure.
So Eileen, can you tell me a little bit about you and so our audience can get to find out who you are and why I've brought you here today?
Okay. So I've been in housing for 46 years. As you can probably tell from my accent, I don't come from London. I come from Glasgow in Scotland. And I started out just over 46 years ago with Glasgow City Council as a repairs clerk. I'd been in college, I had a diploma, and I didn't really know what I was wanting to do. So I just joined the housing department temporarily until I could figure out what I was really going to do. Don't quite know what happened, but here I am 46 years later. So within 6 months, I was a housing officer, and I was a housing officer. Most people won't know where I'm talking about, but it was an area of Glasgow called Govan. It was pretty rough. It was very poor, very, very working class. And I spent a few years doing that. And then I became a repair service manager in the north east of Glasgow. And then about 33 years ago, I resigned and I became a training consultant. And I have been a training consultant ever since. I have worked all over the UK from Bournemouth, down Brighton, Portsmouth, all the way up to the Shetland Isles off the coast of Scotland, and most points in between. I'm very, very lucky. I love what I do. But at the moment, my absolute passion is dampness and mould. I might be a bit of a nerd. But anyway, that's why Tamsin's interviewing me, isn't it? Because I'm a nerd. So I've been doing a lot of the past 2.5 years. I've almost exclusively been training in dampness and mould and condensation, etc., all over England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales.
So that is why she is here, because she knows her stuff. She has been in the shoes of some of our audience, which is what we want. We're thinking about those housing officers, especially with the upcoming changes with Awaab's law coming in. I know I'm going to have former co-workers, you're going to have former colleagues as well, that are going to be really frightened around the changes that come in with the legislation.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of scary because the time scales are fairly tight. I mean, one of them is 24 hours. Now, for example, when I worked in Glasgow, 24 hours, it was tight. But, I could have walked to every one of the houses that I was the housing officer for within about 15 to 20 minutes. Not many organisations can do that now. You've got organisations where their stock stretches, hundreds of square miles, possibly thousands. And there is no way that they would be able to get to them. I work very close with several organisations in the Manchester area. And even although you look at Manchester and go, it's not that big, you try driving around it. Getting to say 3 properties in a day could be a major challenge because there's a car on fire in the M6. There's been an accident in the M60, there's, etc. It's just really busy. So this tight timescale is really worrying for people. The next bit of 10 days is not quite so worrying, but this 24-hour timescale is really putting the frighteners on people, shall we say.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so you've worked in housing for over 40 years.
Yep.
What do you think has been the biggest change and what still hasn't changed enough?
Well, if we were to take broadly the whole of housing, the biggest change is the sale of council houses. And it's the sale of council houses that have really driven the situation that we have at the moment. We have massive homelessness. We have huge waiting lists, and the number of council houses are dwindling on a yearly basis. Now, not to sound kind of smug, but about 10 years ago, 2014, I think it was, Scotland stopped the sale of council houses. So we've kind of put our finger in the dam, which England still hasn't got around to yet. Although I suspect, I was actually reading a thing in, I think it was in the, what publication was it in? Well, it was in Big Issue this week about the sale of council houses and how, you know, houses that were sold maybe in 2015, 2016 are being resold back to councils at 80 to 100% profits. So it's a drain in resources, it's a drain, a horrible drain on the number of houses that we've actually got. So that's, you know, something that was just horrific changes. I do have to say that an awful lot of the council houses back in 1980 weren't in a great shape to start with, but losing them, if we could have reinvested in them, losing them has been rather major. When it comes to what hasn't changed, unfortunately, I am still hearing people saying that condensation is a lifestyle issue. And I just want to shout and scream and occasionally bang their heads together. I don't. I'm very reserved about it. But it's just, and I remember, you know, I gave out leaflets as a housing officer 45 years ago that said, don't dry clothes indoors. Well, I mean, where the hell else are you supposed to dry clothes when it's pissing with rain outside? And I don't know if you noticed, but there are some parts of the country where it pisses with rain quite a lot, particularly at this stage of the year. Condensation's always been this kind of, it's a bit seasonal. We see it starting to rise just now as things get cooler. People could do with turning on their heating. They're not getting the washing out so often. The windows are closed more often. It's getting damper as well. And therefore we tend to get most of the reports in the kind of October to March kind of space. We don't get so many reports in the April to September type space. So yes, there are lifestyle issues around it, but it's not the tenant's fault. And I still hear that. And it's very, very frustrating.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's like you said, there is this seasonal thing, but it is about, I mean, especially where you are, like my family's up in Scotland, and you know,
but even in places like Manchester, I mean,
yeah.
Manchester is, as I say, I go there a lot, and it's very similar, a couple of degrees warmer, but just as soggy.
Yeah, and this is it. But if there's moisture inside the home, so we're all living and breathing, we can't not be breathing, it's kind of quite important to us. We're all living and breathing, but if the humidity level outside is just as high as inside, opening a window is going to make no difference whatsoever.
In the same way that as we get further into the winter, when you're attempting and you're spending every spare penny to get the temperature up to say maybe 17 or 18 degrees inside and it's 4 degrees outside, why on earth would you open a window? It makes no sense whatsoever. And it never made any sense to me. So I've been training on damp and mould for over 30 years, but nobody was really paying that much attention because we'd never had a death. It's the death that changes things. So it's only since that child's death, and actually more to the point, it's only since Awaab's case went to the coroner's court, and he'd been dead for nearly 2 years at that point. It was then that things started to change. In my opinion, they're not changing fast enough, but then I tend to be impatient about lots of other things too. But I do think it's way over time that we had this. We should have had this legislation at least last year, if not previously. Yeah. But anyway, that's the way it is.
No, but it's tragic. There's no other word but tragic that we have to wait for children to die for us to take action. You know, you're going back to like the case of Victoria Columbier, look at baby Peter, and now obviously the loss of Awaab. It's why do we wait so long? It's like we're happier working in the red
Yes.
rather than
And of course, the other thing is that, and I am not in any way trying to, kind of put down the death of Awaab, which is horrendous, but Awaab's just unfortunately one person who died. There are thousands of other people who are ill and who are miserable and have appalling. Not so much the children are ill, and the parents have the anxiety and everything that goes with that. There are people living in miserable conditions that landlords, both private and social, are doing that. Well, you really just need to turn up the heat and open the windows, really. And it's totally unacceptable. It's particularly unacceptable when you find out, if you look at the Ombudsman's statistics, the number of cases where, yes, there was condensation. And yes, maybe somebody could have done with opening the windows occasionally, but what the landlord missed was that there was also rising damp at the back of the building, or there was a leak under the kitchen sink to add to the moisture. So what's effectively happening is far too many folk are going in and seeing all the black mould and just going, black mould, condensation, that means you can see it in the windows, it's a lifestyle issue, turn up the heat. We'll get the mould washed off, you need to turn up the heat and open the windows. Whereas in actual fact, they're not doing a proper inspection in the house. We need to do a proper inspection, or, not that I'm wanting to punch your damp smart, put in some monitors and find out, where is this moisture coming from? Is it all coming from breathing? Can I divert for a minute and tell you a little story from many, many years ago? I was a housing officer. I'm out with a property maintenance officer in Govan. And this property maintenance officer says to one of my tenants, the problem you've got here is that you have too many children. I'm already thinking, oh, I'm not too sure if we want to go down that route or not. And he says, you've got too many children in the one bedroom, all breathing at the same time. And I'm like, what? Now, luckily, the tenant did not immediately slap him or anything like that. She said, could you tell me which one I should tell to stop breathing? Now, by this time, I'm kicking him in the ankle, but no, he kept going. And he said, I'd pick your least favourite. Sweary words. Now, is overcrowding a contributory factor to massive condensation in the house? Absolutely. Definitely. Because if you think about it, if you've got a two-bedroomed house and there's 4 people in it, you've got X amount of moisture being produced in the house. And if you've got a two-bedroomed house and you've got 8 people in it, then you've got 2X amount of moisture being produced in the house. But the difference was that back in 1980 or 1985, I could have said, oh, there's far too many people in this house, get your name down for another house, and within the year we'll have you another house. The chances now of somebody getting another house are so low that we need to work out how to deal with what we consider to be too many people in the house, to deal with the overcrowding, because they're not going to get another house immediately. So how are we going to work with this? We need to figure that out.
Yeah, and it's not just the rented sector. People are on tighter budgets. They can't afford to buy big properties, or they get themselves their first home, fall pregnant. What happened? Oh, I've got twins. I'm having triplets. It's a rarity, but you think you're having one, but all of a sudden you've got 2 babies. Funnily
enough, I had an incidence of this, not personally, I'm very pleased to say, but one of my friends had, because everybody knows, all of my friends know that if they've got any problems with dampness, they phone Eileen. So she'd said, and it was her son. And so anyway, her son and his fiancée were living in this flat and everything is fine. They have a baby and suddenly they've got rampant mould everywhere. Now I never even saw the house, but from the photographs, and I don't like to diagnose from photographs, but from the photographs and what she was telling me, I knew it was condensation because there was mould on the crib. Now, the mould can't jump if it was rising damp. It can't jump that way. The excess moisture from rising damp might contribute to the problem, but they were on the first floor, so that wasn't an issue. But it was fairly obviously that it was condensation. Now, why had this one little 7-pound baby managed to cause so much condensation in the house? Well, because a baby, first of all, produces a lot of washing, a lot of damp nappies, plus Suddenly mum's home an awful lot more than she used to be for at least the first 6 weeks, maybe 3 months, 6 months of that child's life. So having gone from being a couple that would have been out and about, they'd been out at work, etc., they had changed that one wee thing of having the baby. And now, is that lifestyle? Well, I mean, I suppose you could say it's what's happening in the house, but it's just what happens.
It's life.
People have children, it's life. So we have to be able to deal with it. We have to be able to tell people how to cope with that. So yeah.
And it's that educational piece, isn't it? You know, there's plenty of households across the country where you've got multi-generations living together.
Absolutely. Because of our housing crisis, you know, I mean, whilst I don't have any brothers and sisters, but if I had a brother or a sister, and I've currently got a spare bedroom, who said, me and my 2 kids are about to be made homeless, could we move in with you for a while? Of course I would say yes. I might be saying it through gritted teeth, but I would still say yes. So, I mean, and there were times, you know, when I had my kids at home, when they were young adults, they were into their 20s before they moved out. But, you know, there were times that the place was soggy, but because there was always washing, there was always, now, I'm lucky, I stay in a fairly well-built house, and I know to open the windows occasionally, and I know what, but if I did see a wee bit of mould on a windowsill, I would get rid of it immediately. But then that's a lot of, I'm lucky in those ways that I know about that. And I would be able to tell the difference between rain penetration and condensation. But a lot of tenants wouldn't be able to do that. They just see it as a damp patch with mould, and they need us to go out and find out exactly what's causing it and then fix it.
Exactly.
It's not rocket science.
No, it's not. I want to go back to Awaab's law again.
Yes.
So we're early October, so it's coming 27th of this month.
2 weeks today.
2 weeks today. So Awaab's law has become a defining moment, or will be a defining moment, I think, for the sector. How ready do you think housing providers truly are to meet these requirements? We've spoken about it briefly, but imagine you're a housing officer today.
I think they vary from very well prepared to deer caught in the headlights. There are a few places that I've been that I have contact with where they've got an app, where they've specially trained certain people to do triage, where they've got all sorts of situations, they've got methods of reporting, they've got the methods of reporting with like drop-down menus that will automatically send a letter out to, or an email out to the tenant. And there are people who are still going, do you think we need to do some training? Could we maybe fix it in November? And you're thinking, it's a little bit late. So, and again, there's a lot of organisations have trained all of their surveyors. This is very good that you're training all your surveyors, but is it your surveyors that are your first point of contact? Should we be in actual fact training our customer service officers? Should we be training our housing officers so that they are able to say, right, I know a little bit about this. I will be able to go, well, there's a leaky gutter there, or there's a burst pipe there, or there's a something else. But that one I don't know, so I'll pass it to a property maintenance officer or a surveyor. So I think we need to make sure that everybody in the organisations are, and I'm not suggesting that we turn everybody into a surveyor, that's pointless, but we need everybody to be able to say, this is about dampness, this could be about Awaab's law, and therefore I need to refer it, and I need to refer it quickly. Not, I'll hang on to that for a couple of days till I figure out what I should do with it. No, everybody needs to know that as soon as the word dampness is mentioned, what are they going to do with it? And I think a lot of places need more training from that point of view. Needless to say, I'm saying training because I'm a trainer. But I'm not meaning that you have to bring me in to do your training. You just need to have spoken to all of your staff about the effect of this, not just your surveyors and not just your asset management and repairs department. So yeah, I think we need more awareness out there for everybody.
I mean, you've done a lot of reading into Awaab, haven't you? And is my understanding correct that, say, I say Sam, who's a tradesperson, has gone into someone's home and they make a passing comment, so not a complaint, but they mention the word damp and mould. Is that when the clock starts?
Yes, because now, again, it's not entirely clear. Let's say, for example, a gas engineer who was a contractor saw it, then there is mention in the law that if they are a permanent contractor, then they are effectively part of your organisation. But if it was just a kind of random contractor, maybe not quite so much, but anybody that works for the organisation, so the plumbers are now, and anybody who's contracted to the organisation as well, so your gas contractors or your anybody else, and it doesn't even have to be that the tenant tells them, it's just that they see it, that they think, kind of funny smell in here, a bit damp or a bit mouldy or something like that. And they say to the tenant, you get a wee bit, and they say, there's a wee bit, tiny bit behind that. I've not bothered to report it. It doesn't look very bad. No, but that's the clock starts right there. Not, well, we'll leave it for a fortnight and think about it. And again, I'm not convinced that everybody has thought that through properly either. That they're saying, well, then, I mean, we don't really know if we can get our gas contractor to do that. Well, you either better figure out a way to do it, or you need to be able to have better ways of reporting, because that's what's in the law.
Yeah.
Or to let me be clear, that's what in the current guidance says. And I think there will be further guidance, whether it will come out within the next fortnight or whether it will come out at the beginning of the year as they see what has happened over a couple of months, whether the guidance will be tightened up a bit. But I would suggest that folks shouldn't be sitting and thinking, oh, that won't apply to us, because it might be.
Yeah. I think my worry there is, that a lot of housing staff are overworked. Their diaries are chocker. They're, going into, trades potentially, you're going into 5 to 12 properties a day.
Absolutely.
That, something like that happens, if that training piece hasn't happened and it's just been that this is the new policy that we're rolling out, this is what you need to do. Normally those things, it's a tick box. Yes, I've read it. Have you really read it? It's a lot of reliance on the person. And that person that day, they might have said the word damp and mould, but you don't know. They might get into their van and something happened. Their kid's phoned in sick.
Funnily enough, I was talking to an organisation last week, who will remain nameless, who said that they had the opposite problem. That they thought that what their operatives were doing were just going, I'll just tick that box anyway, just in case. And what they were getting was the reverse effect. So when it came back, because they've now been working, I think, for the past 3 months as if, or maybe 2.5 months, as if Awaab's law was law already. So they've been kind of working the system. And they're getting all these damp mould, nearly everyone that they're going out to. And so what they had organised to do was, rather than just immediately send a surveyor, they would get somebody to phone back to the tenant and say, right, we've just had your gas contract. We notice that the contractor has ticked that you mentioned you had damp and mould in the house. And the tenant is saying, no, I didn't. All right. Okay, he's ticked that you've said, no, you haven't. And you definitely don't have anything. You don't have any problems. You don't have any issues. You don't want us to get somebody out to look at it. No. So it's quite weird, because I thought that what you just said would happen. But this and it's quite a big organisation, have found it's the other way around. It's this kind of cover your back, just in case. Don't let it go. Just in case there's mould and I haven't seen it and I haven't asked the right questions, I'll just tick the box anyway and somebody else can figure it out. So I thought that was really quite interesting.
That is, isn't it? That really is. Because I was kind of thinking of it more on the lines of, like you say, they're busy, they're in and out of different people's homes. What if they just
Miss it.
human? You know,
Yep.
we miss it. The kids have phoned up, the dog's sick, something's gone wrong. What's for tea? You know, and you forget. And I think, I don't know if you had it, but you almost kind of get a bit of house blindness as well, because you're in and out of so many people's homes every day. It's hard to go, oh, hang on, which property was that on again?
Absolutely. And of course, certainly as a housing officer, a lot of the houses I were in were all the same layout. The only difference would have been I came in and went left to the bedroom, or I went right to the bedroom, but they were all very, very similar. So later on that day, you're thinking, oh, where was I? Where was I? I can see the wall. There was black mould all behind the bed, and oh darn, I can't remember where I was. So I thought it was more likely that it would be missed. But in actual, now that may not be across the whole country, but for this organisation, whether they've drummed it into people so much that you cannot miss this, they've thought, oh, we'll just tick them all then. But yeah, that's the experience of it. Now, if they can manage to solve that with a phone call, that's probably fine. If they were in the situation that they started sending out inspectors to that, well, that would be an awful waste of resources. So yeah, it's getting the balance, you know, it's getting the staff with sufficient confidence that they feel that they can say, yes, there definitely is, or no, there definitely isn't. No, I'm really not too sure, so I'll just tick the box anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is going to be a lot of trial and error, or testing and pivoting, like you say, over the coming months.
Absolutely.
It's going to need to happen.
The other thing that we've been discussing a lot during training is what kind of effect will the media and press have upon this? It hasn't happened yet. I'm literally waiting on it for it to hit the press of Awaab's law comes in next week, tomorrow, whenever. And from here on in, any social landlord who has any worries about damp and mould can demand an inspection within 24 hours, which is so unuseful, so absolutely such a waste of resources to have folk diving about. This mould is so dangerous that I have got 3 inches of mould along my bathroom window and it's going to kill my 2-year-old. No, it's not. But it gets hyped up by the press, and therefore suddenly you've got folk diving about all over the place. And I think that's concerning. That does worry me a bit. And I have, as I say, been speaking to people saying, I think you will find that the sort of, from the 27th, maybe for a month or two, you will find quite high levels of complaints, but it will tail off. I would also say that if I was in charge, I mean, there's a lot of things that would be different if I was in charge, you would understand, Tamsin. But anyway, if I was in charge, I wouldn't have brought it in on the 27th of October. Why are we doing this? I would have brought it in the 27th of April. Now, that doesn't mean that I think it's acceptable to wait another 4 or 5 months if folk are in danger. But in actual fact, what should have happened was it should have come in April this year. And we should have had it a lot earlier. But it's the wrong time of year to do this. Bring it in when the occasions and the occurrences are not as severe. Instead, we're just coming into the nice damp, cold bit of the year when the case numbers are going to go up anyway, and then we have the press talking about it and the reports will go through the roof.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's that misinformation piece. And as well, like, I think we've spoken about it before, but you're seeing a rise in legal firms as well that are now specialising in damp and mould disrepair claims.
Now, I'm not going to slag off every legal firm, but slag off quite a lot of them. They are in it for money, for them. They don't care whether the tenant ever gets it fixed or not. It's about compensation. I was in another organisation a couple of years ago, and the week that I was there training, one had come back that had been at a disrepair, and the tenant had got, well, there had been awarded 7,000 something, 7,200 something like that worth of compensation, and the tenant saw 2,200 of it. That's wrong. That is so wrong. And the other big problem about that is that what happens is that the firms instruct the tenant not to accept repairs because they want it to look as bad as possible. Therefore, they're saying don't allow them to fix it till we get you compensation. Do they really want compensation, or do they want it fixed?
Mm.
Now, there are a few people who will be wanting compensation, but there are more people who are worried about their health, their child's health, who just want it fixed. And I think a lot of these legal firms get in the way of that.
Okay, so let's look at kind of things that are coming up through your experience as a trainer.
Yes.
So obviously you're delivering training all the time. What are the kind of biggest concerns or misconceptions professionals are bringing to the table and or the conversation around damp and mold? Like you say, can you kill damp and mold? Can you is damp and mold seasonal? That's the other one. You know, Leonard and I always have this argument that, is it? No, it's just colder. But yeah, over to you. What's coming to the table?
One of the first things is this, well, it keeps coming back. And yes, it will keep coming back because you can remove mold until you're blue in the face. If you do not change the indoor situation, it's coming back. And particularly when it's in places like, if it's on your shower screen, it's so easy to remove. I mean, I've removed mold with a baby wipe. It is really easy to remove when it's sitting on a non-porous surface. But once it gets into your walls, onto your wallpaper, into plaster, into untreated wood, all of those kind of places, it's virtually impossible to remove. So we have that's something that has to be taken into consideration. You really can't kill it. You just remove it. And some places you can remove it more easily than others. But the other, and that kind of, well, we went out and we did a mold wash and within 2 weeks it was back, because none of the conditions in the house changed. We didn't reduce the moisture level in the house at all. Then there's I'm concerned that there aren't sufficient decent inspections being done. There are still places where they are missing leaky gutters, a wee bit of rising damp, a wee leak here or there, a wee bit of rain penetration, all that type of thing, because they go in and see lots of mould and go, well, that'll be condensation in. And I think that's concerning. From the people who are coming, one of the big things that's coming, particularly in the big cities, is the overcrowding issue. Because they're saying, I mean, what else can we do? And you understand that. I mean, there are places where I think we would really have to consider starting to put ventilator fans in bedrooms. And they are unfortunately noisy. They're not horrifically noisy, but they are noisy. So that would be problematic. And one of the challenges, and again, coming back to what can Damp Smart do for us, is that it can tell us where the moisture levels are coming from. So it can say, you're getting the mold in the bathroom, but it's actually, you're getting the mold in the bedroom, but it's actually coming from the bathroom. Or you're getting the mold in the bedroom, but in actual fact, it's coming from the kitchen, or all sorts of things. Or the mold is in the bedroom and it's coming from the bedroom, and there's an awful cold wall at the back. Go and find out why that wall is so much colder than all the other walls. There's so much information that Damp Smart can give you. And the great thing about it is it's there 24 hours a day. And that's a major issue, because there are so many incidences where we're looking at the data that we have from, for example, putting a hygrometer into the house or whatever, not a connected one, just a standalone one. And the tenant's saying, it's been 18 to 20 all week. The dampness, the moisture level has never gone above 70, and yet we're still getting horrendous problems. But then when we put in something like Damp Smart, we discover that that is correct. But unfortunately, overnight, the temperature drops to 12 and the relative humidity goes up to 82%. And that's funnily enough why we see all the moisture on the windows in the morning. But you can't tell that until you've got something that's there 24 hours a day, which is where Damp Smart really comes into its own.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting. You know, kind of like we're doing a house actually literally just down the road from where I live. So same estate, same age building. But we've got, so it's a semi-detached, but they're only detached. So one side on the property, and then they've got like a detached or attached garage to the following neighbour.
Yes.
So they've got 3 exposed walls. So we've put temperature sensors on each of the walls to kind of make sure that it's all okay. But the one where in the bedroom, where the damp and mould is really bad, one wall is at 16 degrees, and then on the other angle, the other wall is at like 12 degrees. And you're like, what on earth is happening to go from that? And then you think someone comes out of the shower, that lovely nice bit of steam that comes out of our shower. Oh, there's a nice cold wall over there that I'm just going to go and...
There's another couple of things that I put in training constantly is think about the orientation in the house. The difference between a north-facing wall and a south-facing wall can be about 8 degrees. The sort of just the orientation from the point of view of there could be shade from trees, which could be problematic in the summer, but beneficial in the winter. So there are so many variables. There are just incredible number of variables, and very often folk just don't think through enough of them. Orientation, the cold wall, the insulation that wasn't really put in quite properly, so there's just this cold patch down in the left-hand corner. The furniture right up against the wall, and again, if folk are overcrowded, even if they're not overcrowded, I was out at one about a year and a half ago, and it was an elderly woman on her own. Again, one of these you would expect there to be slightly less condensation, somebody on their own. House was as clean as a pin. Absolutely, and I mean, you could tell there had been mold, but she continually was cleaning it off. But the problem was she'd moved from a 3-bedroomed house to a 1-bedroomed house and hadn't got rid of enough stuff. Now, it was all perfectly neat. It wasn't like a hoarding type situation, but there was just too much stuff. The air could not move around the house. So there's so many variables that we need to think through. And again, I now sound as if I'm being an advertising, but Damp Smart is the type of thing that can say to you, don't worry about that, that's not an issue, there's your issue over there, which is what's going to make a difference for folk. Yeah, and like you said, and you're not coming in with bias, you know, it's a sensor, it's science, it's algorithms, it's fact. And the other thing is that, I mean, obviously I'm not involved in any way, I don't know anything about costs or anything like that, but I figure that very, very quickly, that type of thing is, think about the amount of time that it's going to save your surveyor, when they can put that in and then not have to go back for X number of weeks. And they get all of that data while they're not there. It's going to be, and think about them, even just, never mind the hour or two, but think of the driving time, think of the petrol, think of all those other things, and think about the amount of money that can be saved. I mean, I just think it's quite an incredible potential to get better data, to get better information, without sending surveyors running about all over the country.
Yeah, and unlike our competitors as well, we also decipher the data, so it's educational, and we have it in the different formats as well. But we've done a pilot with a housing association local to me, or sorry, in the southwest, and in relation to it, like we say, you got the kit. Literally, it's in the back of the surveyor's car. You get an Awaab call. That surveyor is down 24 hours. The survey's already started. So, but anyway, that's enough of a plug. We're here to talk and get your information about you. So if you could make one change in law, policy or culture to improve housing conditions across the UK, what would it be?
This is a really difficult one because I'm a bit left leaning. I think that we have monetized certain things far too much. And I believe that we should stop monetizing. Now, it's not just about housing. I believe that all of the absolute necessities in life should not be done by profit-driven reason, let's put it that way. So therefore, we all need a house. There shouldn't be profit involved in it. We all need clean water. Shouldn't be profit in it. We all need gas, electric, schools, transport, etc. All of this stuff is driven by profit. And I don't think that's right. So I would stop that. The other problem I think that we have, and I'm now going to say, I don't care whether we're talking about Tory or Labour or SNP or anybody, the people in the cabinet of whatever organisation, whatever party are in power, most of the time do not require those things. So the children of those people will not be, certainly when it was a Conservative government, their children are not going to local houses. They're not using social housing. They're not using the tube or the railway. So therefore, the people who make the decisions don't actually have any clue what's going on. And I think that's a major, major problem. It's one of the reasons that I'm very, very keen on local housing associations, community-based housing associations, because they're the people that know what's happening in the area. So therefore, they get the people who get to make the decisions. But I do think that if I could change one thing, it would be take the profit out of housing. Leave it in the private sector for sales, but any of the rental sector, get the profit out of it. And then we can actually do it for other reasons rather than there's money to be made here. Because I don't think it's very good to be making money out of other people's misery.
Yeah. Fantastic. Right. We are at the end of the interview, but what we're going to do, Eileen, is I'm going to ask this question to everybody I interview at the end of each podcast. So every airing room session. If you could have a conversation with anyone, past or present, from any profession, who would it be and why?
Well, this is twofold, because if we're not talking about professional housing, could I get a wee chat with my dad?
Oh, of course you could.
He's been dead 36 years. He never got to see his grandchildren, and I would really love to be able to go, oh, this is my daughter, this is my son. I would love to be able to do that, but let's leave that aside since we're being professional today. And I had to have a really good think about this, and I'm going to suggest two. One of them, I think I'm wasting my time, so we'll do that one first. So can we go back to 1980? Can we go to the Chancellor of the Exchequer at the time, who I believe was Geoffrey Howe? And could I try and persuade him that even if I can't stop him from selling council houses, could I persuade him to at least reinvest the money from the sale of council houses in more council houses? I have a feeling I'm onto plums. I don't think that's going to work, but that would be my first one. And the other one that I would love to go back, I had an amazing boss, twice in two different situations. Once we were working on a computerized repair system, and then when I was a repair service manager, she was the area housing manager, a woman called Eileen Spence, and she was wonderful. I loved her, but she was also a flipping genius, and she understood so much more about housing than I ever will, never mind did. And I would go back and she died last year, unfortunately, but I would go back and have a conversation with Irene, because I should have been listening more 35 years ago when she was talking, and I wasn't listening enough. I would go back and talk to her.
Fantastic. So I suppose the takeaway from that then is we've got to listen to each other more, haven't we?
Absolutely. Even sometimes when you think that sometimes maybe somebody is being a bit boring, have a listen to what they're really saying. Try and get past particularly if they've got tons of experience. Have a listen to folk who've got good ideas. And if you don't think that one is particularly going to work, have a look at how it could be adapted. Yep, definitely. Yeah. As my mother would have said, You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you talk.
That's a golden nugget. Brilliant. Right, Eileen, thank you so much for being our very first subject matter expert. Guys, I hope you have found this interesting. Yes, you've listened to 2 women chat away for the last 45 minutes, but if you can take one little snapshot away from this conversation today, this is what the Airing Room is here and what it's about. So give us a like and a follow. Thank you, Eileen, so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Brilliant. Until next time, guys, that's the Airing Room.